we have Roma?
I'm here.
There's Rick, and there's Roma. Okay, yep. And I think Krista will not be joining us for this part. She had a work obligation that she just couldn't get out of. She was texting me this morning about if there was anything crucial she couldn't miss. So I think we can move forward. Okay. I then will call to order the Lancaster County Board of Commissioners staff meeting for Thursday, May 14th. This meeting is subject to the Open Meetings Act. There is a copy located on the back of the wall of the hearing room. Additionally, if you want to review the Open Meetings Act, you can find it at aog.nebraska.gov/open-meetings. That's aog.nebraska.gov/open-meetings. And if you want to review it in state statute, it's state statute 84-1401 to 84-1414. First item up is approval of staff meeting minutes for May 7th.
Move approval. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Please call the roll.
Rick,
Yes.
Roma,
Yes.
Deb,
Yes.
Sean,
Yes.
4-0 motion carries.
Very good. Next up is legislative update with Joe and Brennan.
Good morning, commissioners. Good to be with you. Just a couple of updates for the board. The conversations continue about a potential return by the legislature to what that might look like. I think the range, as I believe I've mentioned previously, the range we hear is everything from early June to late summer. It's sort of everywhere in between. I think there may be some strong desire maybe to look at the short or at the closer end of that, the June date. What that is going to look like, I would presume, is dependent upon how the speaker feels about the current status of restrictions both in Lancaster and I would argue Douglas County as well, due to the just the sheer number of legislators who are coming out of that Douglas County area. So I think it's fair to say stay tuned. We could see something in the by way of some more guidance probably in the next couple of weeks. So we will continue to proceed as we get to later in our report with those interim study resolutions that we discussed, because obviously that will affect, if we're looking at the June date potentially on that, then we could see it as early as we could see a need to get those drafted and start seeking introducers. One thing, and potentially, obviously, we will have more time on the back end of the interim to actually have those hearings. So I think it's potential that we would see that more time to do those. Also,
what sensible argument are they? Why would they not wait until after July 15th? It just seems like not my circus.
No, and I certainly think that concern is shared by a lot of folks about, gee, if we come back and we act on not just those bills that are pending in front of us, but also the budget. What does that look like by mid-August? What does that look like by early fall? If the chickens have come home to roost to some extent on where we're short, if we're short, what has the Congress done by way of additional guidance with regards to the use of the 1.1 billion? Because let's be honest, if you looked at the HEROES Act, which is 1,800 pages long and the summary is 90 pages.
Right.
There, you're starting to, you're seeing some of that strong desire to come in and assist local governments. Certainly that legislation represents some strong desire to help local governments. Also, I believe I read that there's another 500 billion in there for states. This is obviously the Democratic plan. That plan won't pass, but obviously parts of it will be incorporated into whatever could pass. So what does that 500 billion look like that's going out to the states? So just a lot of balls in the air right now with regards to that. And I think it's also fair to say, when they come back, does the legislature begin a conversation in earnest about what role they play in that 1.1 billion, right? And I'm sorry if that's a little like I'm being a little off, but I think it's important to remember that I'm using the number 1.1 billion because that 160 million of it is Douglas County's.
Right. Right.
So I think it's fair to say there's just a lot of balls in the air with regards to that conversation. So following up on the Board of Equalization request made by Douglas and Lancaster counties. As you may all be aware, on Monday, guidance was issued by the state, by the property tax administrator. That was forwarded out to all counties, which was fundamentally the draft that we shared with the commissioners last Thursday in our board meeting. We did receive a follow-up call on Thursday from Mr. Antonello asking about sort of whether or not we had seen that if we had any concerns, and then it moved rather quickly after that to have the guidance issued. So appreciate all of Clerk Nolte and Corey Beatty's input and as well the boards on making sure that process kept moving forward. So I think it's a positive development. Interim studies, we did attach a draft for your review, for drafts for your review of those interim studies with today's report. The only one that's not there is the housing of HHS offices in there. We are still working on that one. That one we're trying to balance a little bit to have it be both specific yet oblique, so or opaque, excuse me. So still working on that one a little bit. Just to, I in the past, obviously, this has drawn the ire of this question of payment for of this cost has drawn the ire of divisions. We went back and looked. It triggered a $3.1 million fiscal note last night. So we're trying to be a little bit more judicious in how we say it in this specific resolution. So that one I held back because I wanted to have a better draft for y'all before we gave it to you. So otherwise,
maybe we got to reframe that as $3.1 million of property tax relief.
I agree, Gary. I agree. So interestingly, you know, I started reading through the transcript of the hearing, and we got into the whole question of, well, what if we did this with a corresponding requirement in the reduction of your levy? So, I mean, that's one of the questions that came up last night. So,
Well, it is a it is a back door to using property tax, which is not the purpose of the state government.
Right. So we will have those final versions for your review. You can take a look at those drafts, and then we'll have the HHS housing one next week for you. So with that, try to answer any questions that you might have. Or Brennan.
Hey, Cody, you got a copy?
What was that?
I don't know what that was.
I don't think it was a question for you, Joe.
Sounded like somebody was in a motorcycle facility. So
Yeah.
All righty. Any questions for Joe and Brennan regarding the legislative update? I mean, I think we're all sort of just in a holding pattern.
awesome. Thanks, everybody. Thank you for your time. Thanks for joining you virtually. Thank you.
We'll see you. Next up is request for second driveway with Jeremy Johnson and Engineer Dingman and Ken Schroeder, County Surveyor from the engineer's office.
How we doing, guys?
Good.
Morning.
Never done this before, so I'm not really sure where to start, but I'm Jeremy Johnson, and we purchased a home in the Roca area, the preserve at Cross Creek, about, I think, late October, early October of last year. I did it with the intent that I was going to put a building up, a pool in the backyard, and I wanted to widen the driveway, add a driveway going into the building, and then put a circle drive into the building, or not into the building, but into the front yard, as per the drawing that I had sent you guys earlier, Ken and a couple others. At that point in time, I probably should have done a little more research on my own, and I didn't. I didn't realize that adding a second drive was actually something that isn't really able to be done unless it would be granted by the board, which is then, I don't want to say breaking the rules, but it's not, it wasn't set up that way to begin with. And I didn't realize that. So that's my fault for not doing my research on that. Got ready to start the project and realized that, hey, I can't do this. And the only way that I possibly could would be to get permission from the board. So that is the reason why I'm here today. The couple things that I wanted to point out on this second drive is I do feel that the property is large enough to be able to have that. And I would make sure that there'd be no cost to the county. I would pay for the culvert. I'd pay for the maintenance, the upkeep of it. I'd put it in per specs for the county so that it would at least be exactly the same as it should be, other than being granted to have that second drive. Currently right now, and I didn't build this home. And if I would have done things a little bit differently. But currently right now, if I have a guest or a visitor that pulls up, then nobody else can leave the residence. And so adding the second drive would allow people to be able to come in and still be able to leave the residence. It also brings everybody to the front door of the house instead of bringing them to the garage, and will allow for additional parking. Right now, my son is a senior, so he's got friends. Well, they were before this pandemic hit, but that would come over and so forth. And pretty soon I got 3 or 4 cars parked out on the street on 64th Street. And I don't really care for that. And I just think it would be better if we would have that circle drive. And I think the circle drive looks nice as well. The curb appeal of it is pretty nice. But again, I'm just asking for permission. I understand the rules. I know that this is probably a long shot on being granted it. But if at all possible, I would like to be able to add this second drive and do it without adding any cost to the county, because there doesn't need to be. I mean, if at all possible, I guess.
Commissioner Amundson?
We have had several requests come forward before regarding circled second driveways, and it does create an issue if we make an exception. And so this is one of the, I would be reluctant to go forward to approve that.
When I first asked about this, the developer actually was shocked that I couldn't do it. He never intended it for it to be developed that way. Something I probably should have added it sooner, and I just slipped my mind. But he actually kind of helped me get me going in the right direction to be able to at least present to the board to possibly have the option. He didn't intend for it to be that way, and it just ended up being that way for whatever reason. But he has no issue with it being that way. I don't know if engineering maybe could could shed some light on us of why maybe it would have been done that way to begin with, or I'm sure there's a good reason. I just don't know what it is.
So Pam Dingman, Lancaster County engineer, and Ken is with me today too. And I promised Ken that I would be the document share person.
Okay.
So at this time I've started sharing my screen. Jeremy, I smirked when you said the developer didn't know the intention.
Okay.
Mainly because this is a copy of the documents under which your lot was platted. And if you see item number 12, it says each lot is limited to a single access.
Okay.
So that's how it happened. It was a standard note on his plans. It's a standard note in the county. So it is in the documents. I also have this document, which you alluded to, and I put it up on the shared screen. I know this is your plan with your circle drive and your existing drive. So just so the commissioners could kind of see what you were talking about.
Yeah.
And then this is actually a picture of the lot that we're talking about within the preserve. So the big thing gets to be, Ken and I really get dubbed the rotten people when we deny these accesses, but the reality is it's in the original platted documents. And so we really have no method of approving the second access. So it has been a standard that we allow one access per lot. There are places in the county where people have slipped it in. They're not approved accesses. But this is the procedure at which has been laid forth for residential lots in the county. And so, Ken, I didn't know if you had anything to add to that.
Well, all there's 9 of those developments in this preliminary plat, and all of those developments have that same note of a single access. So the developer would have had to known that it was a limitation for access. And this is on the smaller size. I mean, we even have that note on the developments that have the nominal 3-acre lots, and this one's about 1.5 acres, I believe.
Okay. I guess when I talked to the gentleman, Dan Klein, he alluded that he didn't realize that was the case. It might have been something he overlooked. I'm not sure. I know he still has some control over that because not every lot is sold out there, but it's getting pretty close. And I know he doesn't mind if there was a second driveway. That probably doesn't change anything. But look, I understand the rules. I'm not here to fight or argue with anybody at all. I simply am just, you don't know unless you ask the question. And I can't see any reason why it wouldn't, but I'm just a guy trying to put the driveway in. There's bigger pictures that are happening out there that I don't get to see. So it was a goal of mine when I bought the property, and I probably should have dug a little deeper to find out if I could or couldn't. I really didn't realize that it was going to be an issue until I tried to get a permit to do it. I'm just trying to do things the right way, guys. That's all.
I don't think there'd be any objections to have that drives curve over and then have a turn on their own property. I mean, like a little circle, but just not loop back to the street.
Yeah, and there really isn't enough. I've looked at that. It doesn't look, and I've had it on paper. I've stepped it off. It would work for people with little cars. It's not going to work very good with if you have an SUV like a Suburban or a 3/4 ton pickup. And it really didn't look very good on the property either when I was looking at it. So, I mean, if I can't do it the way I got it drawn, obviously it'll just get abandoned, and I just won't be able to do it. But it was just something that like I said, when I bought the property, I was hoping I could do this. I was planning on doing it until I realized that I couldn't. So, again, I'm not here to start an argument or anything like that. I'm simply just asking permission. And I knew it was probably a long shot because I don't remember the gal's name, but as she stated before, when you start making amendments for one, you open up a whole nother situation.
Well,
Yeah, Commissioner Robinson.
Yeah, and that is precisely it, because if you open it up for one, then, all of a sudden there would be, the floodgates would be open. And that's one of the things that I know that there are some that do exist in the county. That's been, I think that they were built before, but because of some issues that came out, it became just a practice that we would only have one driveway.
Yeah, Jen Holloway.
I just also want to note, in addition to it being in a plat, it's also been a county standard and a resolution since about 1982, I think,
Yes.
since that you guys only allow one access unless approved by the county engineer. So that's another reason.
Okay. And the county, I think I understand this. The county engineer is recommending denial, right?
Well, the county, yeah, it's in the plat that you only have one access. So, that we really have no, you guys have a resolution, it's in the plat. There's really no vehicle to approve a second access is the issue. It is what we have done as the standard for a very long period of time.
Right. Yeah. Commissioner Amundson.
I would move denial of the request.
Mr. Johnson, you've handled yourself very gracefully here this morning, and we appreciate that. I think you understand the issues before us. I'm going to second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Hearing
Nope.
none, please call the roll.
Roma,
Yes.
Deb,
Yes.
Rick,
Yes.
Sean,
Yes.
4-0, motion carries.
Mr. Johnson, I just want to echo Commissioner Vest's statement. You've done a nice job presenting here, and I'm sorry that we couldn't approve your request. I am.
Can I, just for curiosity, from an engineering standpoint, what would be the reasons why? I understand why you guys are denying me, but what are the reasons why it wouldn't have been why it was in the plat to begin with, I guess? They say it's standard and it has been since 1982, but just from my own knowledge, I'm just curious what the reasoning is that as a standard.
Engineer Dingman, can you shed some light on that?
Sure. So, and obviously, in 1982, I think I was in 7th grade. So, I don't know how that resolution came about, but I think Ken was maybe here already then. That being said, it has been a standard in order to minimize the number of drive connections. We currently have about 8,000 pipes that we maintain in Lancaster County. And so it's my understanding that this was a standard that was put into place in order to minimize those connections and maintaining those connections throughout the county.
Would it be something to look at for future use of that? If somebody wants to add a second one, they can do it at their own cost and dime and maintenance. I mean, really, because in the end of it, that's the reason why it's set up as one, is because of cost and the time of maintaining those drives, right?
So in the past, Mr. Johnson, there have been other people that have brought that to the board as, could they put the drive in if they would agree to maintain it? And in the past, the board has said no to that question. And so we have had people offer to maintain them. Again, once it's in the plat and the other documents, the only vehicle it's really out of my hands. The only vehicle is to ask the board for approval. And I guess I'm just reiterating what the board has said to residents in the past.
There are some developments that have the right of way dedicated as an outlot and in private ownership. And I think our jurisdiction, as far as the number of driveways on those, it isn't a maintenance item for us. So maybe the developers would have to look at it for like private roadways. Do you think that, Pam?
I'm not really prepared, I guess, at this time to speak to whether a subdivision is going to be a private roadway and maintained internally by the residents of the subdivisions, or a public road, I guess, at this point.
Yeah, that's been a broader, more complicated
Yeah,
conversation.
that has been a big issue,
think-
so.
I think Commissioner Vest, then Commissioner Amundson.
Yeah, yes, and I mean, I think Mr. Johnson raises a valid point. If the concern of the county has been cost of, putting in the pipe and maintaining the pipe once it's put in, because it'll wear out eventually. If the landowner is willing to reach an agreement, is that something we can modify as a county? And that might be a question for Jen to clarify. Found you, Jen.
I'm hiding. So because it's in your resolution, if you guys were to waive this for one person, you would have to eventually waive it for other people under similar circumstances. So if this is something the county would want to change, you'd have to amend your resolution. So if,
And what would
and
be,
yeah, go
what would
ahead.
even be what would be the vehicle for that then? We'd have to, because the cost would have to travel with the property. It couldn't travel with the person because they might sell the house. So you'd have to do it, what, as a lien, as an ongoing lien? That seems odd. I'm just trying to structure it in my head. Anyways.
Yeah, it would, yeah, we'd have to look into this. And if this is something you guys want to do, we can try and figure that out.
Here's just a thought. Pam, what is the average life expectancy of a culvert?
It kind of depends on the area and the soil type, especially with these metal culverts. Sometimes they will last for 40 or 50 years. Sometimes they don't. Sometimes we only get 20 years out of them. We always hope to get a little more. It also depends on, if people hit it with the mower, if it's hit with vehicles, what's around it. So
if a culvert would cost, say, what's the average cost to put a culvert in? 18-inch culvert, just ballpark. Nobody's holding you to anything here.
It's probably $2,500, $2,500 to $3,000.
What if the average life expectancy at culverts, say 20 years, and a culvert's $2,500, you did a 4 times effect, charge the person $10,000, they put it in, the county maintains it, and then you don't have to worry about the cost. And by the way, you got extra money in the bank to start collecting interest.
Mr. Johnson, I'm aware of your entrepreneurial spirit in the community and of the great business you've built. So I expected you to come forth with something like that this morning. Again, I have
I'm not to interrupt you, but I'm not asking for me. You guys have already set my driveway. My part's done. I'm right now thinking about other people because I think it's kind of crappy that when someone wants to do something that's going to look nice, they can't do it. And that I'm not here to argue for me. Mine's done. Now I'm talking for the rest of the people, because there's been several that you've alluded that have wanted to do this in the past. And I can already think of 4 or 5 in the neighborhood that want to do it now, in the same neighborhood I live in. So I was just trying to figure out something for the future, because otherwise not everybody's going to handle it like this. A lot of people are going to get upset. And I think, and I don't see any reason why a person shouldn't be able to do it at their cost, and it doesn't cost the county. So I'm just looking for a way to do it. Like the one gentleman said, I've already thought of this. What happens when the home changes hands and another owner buys it? Those type of things. How do you do that with the lien? That's kind of messy. So if you just have a set fee that it costs X amount of dollars, and if somebody wants to know why, so it lasts for 100 years or 80 years.
Commissioner Amundson had her hand up, and then I just want to let everybody know we are at 10:02 on this, so we're starting to fall behind. I'll let this go for another few minutes, but
Okay, I would just like to make one comment, because if you remember, we've had many discussions with the county engineer after a while taking over the control or the maintenance of subdivision roads.
Yeah.
And what might work right now or seem reasonable right now, and if you have reasonable people working with this, all of a sudden in 10 to 15 years, if the county takes over the entire maintenance of that subdivision because of other the amount of the population and so forth, all of a sudden we get into other issues in that regard. And then it becomes a cost to the county.
In that aspect though, I believe those individuals that have built that home are paying the taxes that should be able to cover the cost of maintaining those roads to begin with at a pretty high rate.
Yeah, we'd had a subdivision study a while back. It wasn't popular with the board, but it did show that the net effect of housing taxes that are raised does not cover the cost of providing service. So it's not, it's not something we're going to make up on volume. So the average cost of a house does not raise enough taxes to cover the services that are provided.
So does one just,
That study was done back in about 2000, 2004. So it's an old study.
It is 10:04 right now. Did anyone have any final statements they wanted to make? Mr. Johnson, if you had anything you want to say here at the end, this would be a good chance. Okay, all right. I am going to have us move on to the next item down then. Thank you so much for your time.
Do we have a motion and a second?
you had that, yes.
Yeah, we
We
took
had
the vote.
that, okay.
We're good. Yeah.
Okay.
So, all right. Thank
you.
you, Mr. Johnson. Sorry we couldn't give you the answer you wanted. All right, we will move down to tree planting at County Poor Farm Cemetery with Brent Meyer, County Weed Control Superintendent.
Well, good morning, everyone. Hear me all right?
Yes.
Yep.
It's great to
Don't
see you.
delay that. I always have computer troubles when you delay. I was a little nervous already. So, so I had an individual, Miss Stephanie Williams, approach me about planting maybe a wildlife bearing, fruit bearing type of tree out at the Poor Farm Cemetery. And I don't know if any of you have visited the Poor Farm, but it's basically it's a prairie. There's no headstones at that cemetery. And as you're probably aware, I think I've mentioned it during my annual reviews, we maintain 6 abandoned cemeteries in the county. So the Poor Farm is the only one that has no headstones. And for a lot of years, it wasn't even recognized that it was a cemetery. It was actually farmed over until we took it over and planted it back to grass. So there's evidently quite a few people that visit out in that cemetery. I think there's a geocache site out there is what I was informed. So it does get some visitors. She goes out about once a week and would just like to plant. She mentioned like a prairie fire crabapple or something that's good for wildlife and doesn't get to be real huge. I'm good with it. I talked to Ann and we thought maybe we should bring it to the county board just for approval. There's a couple trees on the property and a bunch of scrub brush. So it would definitely be a beneficial thing out there. And I will check. As you're aware, we have Lincoln Tree Service that maintains the trees on our cemeteries at no charge to the county, just as a way of giving back to the community. And I would want to check with Jim Haas there and just make sure that we don't plant some type of tree that's going to cause them a lot of work, 20, 30 years down the road or something. So any questions, I'll be glad to answer them. And then I kind of have a little follow up to that. I was out there yesterday and an individual approached me about mowing that cemetery at no cost for us. So I know we've got agreements on the other 5 cemeteries for people to mow, and it needs an annual mowing 2 or 3 times a year as well. It's like I said, it's grown up in plum thickets and scrub brush and cedar trees and everything else right now. So as I was there yesterday looking it over, getting some pictures of the condition of the cemetery, Mr. Larry England stopped by, who's a neighbor there, and offered to come in there and mow that a few times a year for us, which ironically in our office, we talked about that on the way out there, if we could get the county folks to mow that a couple times a year. So it was strange that he just happened to pull up behind me and we had that discussion. So anyway, we'll deal with the tree today, and any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
Commissioner Vest?
Yeah, well, first of all, and I know Commissioner Shore stated this already, it's good to see you. Thanks for joining us. We're glad you're back and about among us.
You know, I wish everybody could go in feeling as bad as you do and come out feeling as good as you do and one day stay. I mean, it's an amazing procedure, but it's a wake up call. So thank you.
Yeah, well, my question then, I guess, so your department is the one who kind of has responsibility for these cemeteries. So you're the person that knows the most about the situation, and we don't have to get somebody else's opinion on this.
No, we oversee them for the county. The counties, there's state statute that dictates what the county's responsibility are on abandoned cemeteries. And at some point, you know, maybe when we get back to normal, I'd like to give a presentation again. I know some of the board members are newer. I used to give a presentation about every 3 or 4 years on these. It's a neat project. It's one of the projects that I get to do that I really enjoy. There's a lot of history in the cemeteries, and there's a lot of pride of the people that take care of them. And I think most of them would probably, we pay them $200 a year to mow those cemeteries. So I call them volunteers because they don't really even get their money back out of it. It's been a neat project. I know Commissioner Shore was around when the Boy Scouts stepped up down at Hickman and started taking care of Dietz Cemetery. So there's one Boy Scout actually got his Eagle badge by straightening the tombstones and fixing fences out there. So it's a neat thing. There is a lot of people to visit them. You know, right now with Memorial Day coming up, one of our standards is always to get them mowed at least 2 weeks prior to Memorial Day. And those folks get $50 mowing with a maximum of four cuttings. So they spend a lot more time than that out there. I'm well aware, and you know it's pretty neat. But yeah, the county takes care of them. We make the decisions on them. State statute, and I'll give you the number. It's 12-809 actually states in there that you know we have the responsibility of planting grass and trees, and we have the authority to do that. So
do we need a motion then to move this forward, or just a nod of the head saying we're okay with it?
I think might as well make a motion. I don't think it needs to go any further than this meeting.
I make a motion that we allow Brett to authorize this lady to plant a tree that is appropriate for that site.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Please call the roll.
Deb,
Yes.
Rick,
Yes.
Roma,
I'm not sure Commissioner Amundsen's with us at the moment.
Just got her. She's muted.
Roma, are you there? You're muted if so.
Oh, she looks like she stepped away.
We still have quorum. I think we can move on.
and Sean.
Yes.
3-0 motion carries.
Okay.
And then if I could, I'll just follow up real quickly with the mowing into that. So the way we handle those in the past is we issue agreements to the other 5 cemeteries that mow them. And once the board approves those agreements are in effect, effectively until they're canceled. So if it's all right, I will prepare that document with Mr. England and get his signatures and bring that before the board at a later date. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Very good.
That is all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Brent.
You bet.
We'll move down to the Chief Administrative Officer class description with our Human Resource Director, Doug McDaniels.
Good morning, Commissioners. Last week, you had asked me to do some edits to the Chief Administrative Officer class description. I tried to reflect what I thought was your desire. I circulated that to all of you last week with the highlighted areas and asked for input. I heard from one commissioner on just some very, very minor changes, and I did not send those out because it did not change anything. Essentially, in the examples of work, we had basically, language that didn't match the rest of the class description. We had provides, legal counsel, drafts, legal documents, And this commissioner felt it should be in the singular, provide legal counsel and draft legal documents. So I made those simple changes. So it's before you at this point in what I think is its nearly final form.
I think it looks good. The only thought that I had, and I didn't even have it until this morning when I was reviewing the documents, is do we maybe want to extend the requirement of months until they get the ICMA certification, only because there may be less opportunities in this new COVID-19 world to receive ICMA certification. I don't know if they're going to be holding those conferences and things. I completely support getting the ICMA certification. I was just wondering if we wanted to maybe extend those months because COVID-19 makes everything harder. Commissioner Amundsen.
I think that what we could do is to, first of all, see what availability there is in terms of online classes and so forth, and before we really extend it. If there does seem to be a problem, perhaps, then we can make an amendment. But I think that an 18-month, it's a year and a half, that would seem logical.
What we've done, if I could,
please.
Commissioner Flowerday, what we've done in other circumstances is rather than amend or change the class description, we've just drafted a memo and that says, in light of these circumstances,
Okay.
this time
Yeah.
period has been
Perfect.
extended or something. And I think that, serves the purpose and such. Okay.
Perfect. Yep.
Yeah,
I
that's
think
good.
that's a great solution. I just didn't want to hammer anybody
Right.
if just because COVID ruins everything. Yep.
Absolutely.
So I think it looks good. I'm happy.
I would recommend scheduling it for Tuesday for approval at the county board Tuesday meeting.
Okay. Do we have any further details about when Dave will be coming over? And I know that you wanted to be gone at the end, depart at the end of the fiscal year, Carrie, but what do you feel we need as far as a transition timeline?
Well, I don't think it's going to be real difficult with David. Him being at the county here, I mean, there's nothing stopping us from conversing now. The only problem, of course, is being the COVID situation and being able to meet face to face. So, yeah, he said he wanted to start in 30 days. I haven't heard anything different. So I think I'd be happy to talk with David and get an absolute date that he's starting. And then we can work out the office situation. It'd be easier for me to work from home probably. And we don't need two people in this office, especially with COVID going on. So it's really up to the board. And I think it'll be a very smooth transition, quite frankly.
I've spoken a little with both Dave and Carrie about this. I think Dave he's giving 30 days notice to the county attorney's office. That'll take him basically through the month of May. I think there in that first week of June, he would probably come on with us. Carrie would continue until the end of June. I was kind of thinking July 3rd is a Friday. Does that work for you, Carrie? Because then July 4th
yeah.
would be your first day away from us.
Yeah, absolutely. It has a nice ring to it. That is probably the holiday because July 4th would be on a Saturday. So I think the holiday would fall back to the 3rd. So
Right. Okay. So maybe
it doesn't matter, but it has a nice ring to it.
Right.
Liberty Bell.
Independence Day is your first time off from it. Yeah. So I'd be satisfied with that, and that gives us a month of overlap. I don't suspect that Dave will need a full month working with Carrie because, like Carrie was saying, they can talk now, and but it does give us some time with Carrie still in place for Dave to go out to some of the other departments, meet with them, spend a couple days seeing what their jobs are like. When I spoke with him, he wanted to do sort of a little bit of a listening tour type thing almost. Obviously, in COVID-19, that makes that harder, but it would just give him that time, and I'm satisfied with that if everybody else is.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we'll get a date locked down, but I think officially Dave will come on board with us in early June, and then I think Carrie will leave that week of Independence Day.
Okay.
So that work for everybody?
Yep. Yes.
Like it?
Yeah, Doug, can you get a clean version maybe and get that scheduled for Tuesday? If you need my assistance, I'd be happy to help getting it scheduled. But
Yep, I've got it scheduled. I'll get it sent down.
Pardon me?
I've got it. I've got it scheduled to clean it up and I'll send it down to you.
Alrighty, thank you.
Thanks for your revisions there, Doug. I think they were all great. So
All
we're
right.
good. We've got a little bit before the executive session is scheduled. Let's jump down to Chief Administrative Officer report.
Yeah, I had received correspondence from Prudential Julie Klassen. We had sent the letter out to employees in the 457 who may qualify for a COVID-related distribution. They have support services for financial education, pension education. Would be at no cost to the county, but it's a webinar and they would need to set it up a couple of weeks ahead of time. I think there would be 2 different courses that they would offer. So they'd need a couple of weeks advance and certainly approval from the board. The sessions last about 45 minutes. We would have to decide the time and place. I don't know if but what we would do is notify employees and the participants in the plan that these webinars are available. And I don't know if we'd want to do it during working hours. Of course, with the 24-hour shifts, you can't get away from that problem. So just gauging the interest of the board and whether you want Prudential to work on this, and then see how many participants in the plan would like to participate in the webinars.
So, I think it's a great idea. I think the more information we can provide to our employees, the better. So they have to have a set time. It won't. I was hoping that it would be something they could watch at, their convenience, but you're saying that it has to be a specific time.
Well, that's what the information says from Julie. Yeah, because they would have one of their presenters do it. And I've participated weekly. They're not doing them anymore on the market volatility update, and they would record those and then make the presentation available later. There's probably a question and answer session on this as well. I could ask Julie that question, but there would be an initial presentation, and they would want to know the time and date for that.
Well, that's what I was going to say for our, for our staff that's working unconventional hours. We could, at the very least, record it. They could watch it, and then if they did have any questions, they could email those in. It's an imperfect solution, but it's something.
It's probably the best available. They're not going to want to do it, at 2 a.m. because there may be a couple of folks that are interested.
Right. So, can we move forward with that? Does that make sense?
Yeah. Would you like to schedule it for an evening hour, early evening, after work, maybe a lunch hour type situation?
Yeah, I would say probably at noon or at like 5:30, something like that.
Okay, I think shoot for noon. Of course, we need the cooperation of our directors and elected officials on this if it does require some employees from being away, but it's important, and they should make that time available, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense.
Okay, I'll communicate with Julie. We'll get something in the works and we'll notify the participants.
Sounds good.
But notifying department directors and elected officials first, so they aren't surprised when they see a mass email out to employees.
Okay, I'll indicate that as well. I'll take care of that separately.
Yeah. We don't have anything else on that. We'll jump down to the Deputy Chief Administrative Officer report with Lancaster County priorities. Anybody?
I don't have anything new.
Okay. Anything anybody wants to discuss on these? Okay. Let's jump down then to discussion of board member meetings attended. First up is ISPC with Commissioner Yoakum. She's not here, so we'll jump down to Realtors Association Government Affairs Committee with Commissioner Amundson.
Okay, yeah. I had attended that, and I had a follow-up meeting that I needed to go to, so I had requested to be one of the first ones on the agenda. Mayor Gaylor Baird was there, and she spoke quite a bit. She was first on the agenda, and she spoke quite a bit about, the reopening of Lincoln, the situation with COVID, the number of cases, some of her concerns. She thanked everyone for their cooperation, touched briefly upon the budget issues and the hard choices that are going to be coming up. So that essentially was what her conversation was about. My turn came up and I spoke about that we're beginning the budget discussions and so forth, and talked about the new Board of Equalization plan, the plans that we're going to utilize for the Board of Equalization this year, and discussed briefly the jail and the YSC statistics. And then I did have to leave.
Okay. Region 5 meetings were Commissioner Yoakum as well. Public Building Commission was rescheduled for May 19th, is my understanding. So
yes, it was.
Yep. And then and I was unable to attend the Board of Health. I'm actually not certain it happened. There was a lot of back and forth and a lot of discussion about whether or not it ought to. I know the attorneys, both the city attorney and the county attorney, believed that doing a Zoom meeting would be a violation of the Open Meetings Act. But there were board members who were trying to push forward with doing it via Zoom anyways. And I was busy with personal things, and I was unable to attend. So I'm not actually even sure if it happened or not, or if it did happen, if it was real. So I don't have a ton of answers there. And then Commissioner Yoakum, again, for Mental Health Crisis Center. So
Sean, I'd like to report on a couple meetings that have happened this week regarding the 33rd and Cornhusker project.
Yeah, please.
We had a large advisory meeting via Zoom on Tuesday, and then yesterday was a follow-up meeting with the consultants and representatives from Federal Highway and NDOT. There, one of the items that came out of the advisory board meeting was making sure that we are maintaining pedestrian access across Cornhusker. And there was a proposed pedestrian overpass that I can send you a picture of, that was very large and looks like it would be difficult for a handicapped person or anyone with mobility issues utilizing a wheelchair to navigate. So we're looking at some other options there, and there was also some concerns raised about trail access and making sure that that is maintained as a part of this project. So we had planned on a large public meeting this summer, and that will be going on now electronically. They will be pushing out new information on the website, sending postcards out to people to let them know to check the 33rd and Cornhusker website and provide input via that method.
Okay. Very good. Anybody have anything else regarding meetings attended?
Well, I did attend the state JDI executive board meeting.
Oh,
the primary purpose that was yesterday. The primary purpose of that meeting was to review the draft and to finalize it a bit more. And I think it's close in final form. But we reviewed the strategic plan for the Nebraska JDI, and just to make people aware of what is going on that JDI is doing across the state. Actually, the interesting thing is that 70% of the kids of the youth who are in the service centers are from Sarpy and Douglas and Lancaster County. And so it does seem as though that a lot of this just plays right into that. But the primary thing is that they reviewed the strategic plan, and there's 8 priorities, and I'm not going to go into all of the different priorities, but there was a lot of discussion upon the use of data and how to interpret the data. That was that would apply to people across the state, particularly also in the racial and ethnic communities. That was one of the concerns. And also another concern that they had was they wanted to enhance the collaboration with detention, with the YRTC, with transition to Douglas County facility, with new facility. Is there a state plan for this? And they also wanted to have more sharing of data. I think that was primarily it. There was a great deal of communication in that regard. They believe that they need to have stakeholders talking more to each other. So that was generally it.
Very good. Well, that puts us at 10:28, which I think is close enough. We will move to the executive session here. Do we have a motion?
I move that we enter executive session for the purposes of protecting the public interest, discussing pending litigation, and receiving legal advice at 10:29 a.m.
And we need to say labor negotiations.
and labor negotiations.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to go into executive session. Is there any discussion?
Rick,
Yes.
Roma,
Yes.
Deb,
Yes.
Sean,
Yes.
4-0 motion carries.
Very good. We are now in executive session. So it is 10:29. We are entering executive session.
Sean, hold on a second. We gotta stop the stream we gotta pause or put the pause on the stream real quick. Sorry about that. I was on the phone and I just caught that you guys were going into this. Yeah, go ahead and kill it.
Okay, you're still on time, Jamie, and I'll give you.
Okay, it looks like we're back on. Just waiting for the, we have Leslie with us too. So I think we are good then.
I got you back up and rolling, gang.
Perfect. So I would entertain a motion to come out of executive session.
I move that we come out of executive session at 10:39 a.m.
Second,
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Please call the roll.
yes.
Roma,
Yes.
Rick,
Yes.
Sean,
Yes.
4-0 motion carries.
Okay, we are now out of executive session at 10:39. And we will go into a break until 11 a.m. If Dennis and the county treasurer wanted to start at 10:55, I don't think anybody would mind. So, but we'll go to break at least. Let's try to come back at 10:55 so that we're ready to go right on the dot at 11, so that we don't have any delay.
Okay.
All right.
Where's Mocha?
Hey, Dennis.
How's it going?
Hey, it's going real fine. And yourself?
It's not going too bad.
Oh, that's good. I'm glad to hear that. I was going to tell you this, Dennis. You know, whenever you come on the TV, you are always at 26 minutes to 5 o'clock.
Right. I always figure that it's a little after 4:30. So whenever I look at that clock, it tells me, you know what? It's real close to quitting time.
It's real close to quitting time. Well, in your case, it's always close to quitting time.
It's always quitting time. It's not close to quitting time. It's always quitting time for me.
Okay.
Hey, Sean, it's Jamie. I've got Rachel is in the council chambers. Rachel, if you can hear us, do you mind just talking into the mic real quick? We'll make sure they're all hearing you okay, please.
I'm here. Can you hear me?
We can hear you great.
Okay.
I think we're good to go then.
Okay, so let's start talking budget stuff. I am going to share my screen again. If I can find what I'm looking for. Okay, so can everybody kind of see my screen now?
Yes.
Okay, so today we are going to start off with the county treasurer's office. So let's, Rachel, let's go ahead and first start with this current fiscal year that we're in right now. talking about additional appropriations. At mid-year, you had thought that you would be able to make it through the fiscal year without any additional appropriations. What's your current thoughts on that right now?
I'm hoping we're still going to continue with that because there's some expenses that are not going to happen. So if we go over in some other areas, we should still come out, I hope, a little under budget. We'll see,
Okay.
but it'll be close.
Okay. Talk to us about what effect COVID-19's having on your current year budget, as well as what you're thinking about for next year's budget.
Okay, on this year's budget, it's having more probably of an impact due to the economy on the income side of it, because our investments are taking a big hit as we renew CDs, and our money market rates, they're all tumbling. They were kind of low to begin with, but they're going under 1% now. We were doing 2%, and there was 1 or 2 that we got at 3%. But as we're renewing now, they are going under 1%, and so that kind of income will be down. We, due to some changes in statute for that were made starting January 1st, we are getting a little more income on the motor vehicle side from our sales tax remit. When we remit, we only used to get up to $75. Now we're getting more of a bigger fee. And that is going to show a little more income, and that isn't really a COVID issue, but that will probably offset anything we lose due to the loss in interest. As far as expenses, we're having I'm just adjusting some of what I was going to maybe do with some of our expenses, like I'm working on some permanent sneeze guards in 2 of the locations on North 46th and out at West O, and doing any other kind of work that we might have been thinking about doing. So hopefully we're okay. We might have a need for some overtime coming up. And it was suggested to me that I work with Sarah Hoyle to see if we can get some of that as part of the CARES package or a grant money or something. And so we'll have to probably look into that. But other than that, hopefully, besides the other items that we'll be purchasing, masks and thermometers, and there might be a couple of other things. We'll have some signage. We should be able to, that shouldn't be too expensive, and some of that maybe can come under getting reimbursed from some grant money.
Okay, so
Dennis, can I ask a question?
Yeah, go ahead.
Rachel, what was the reason for the overtime?
Oh, we don't have it right now, but we may. Right now, what I'm looking at is normally we have about, I figured with the numbers, I was just looking at numbers yesterday, about a little over 30,000 probably people that come into all 3 of the offices. And most of that would be for motor vehicle. And when we start back up, we have, when I look at the numbers, probably taken in about 2/3 what we normally do for the motor vehicle transactions. So there'll be 1/3 of the people that are probably going to be coming in because the governor has issued a memorandum that people can wait up after, anybody that had licensing due after March 1st can wait till 30 days after the governor issues resumption of that we have to pay. And so I'm just thinking in the summer months, we may, in order to take care of customers, need to have people there for longer hours.
All right, thank you.
Okay, so with the graph that I've got up here right now, you can kind of, I'm just going to kind of float over the numbers so you can kind of see where the treasurer's request is at. If you look at the expenses, you'll see that it's at you know, a little less than 3.8 million, which is about a 4% increase. When you look at her revenues, and she's talked about a little bit with the interest side of things, you'll see that her revenues are at about a little less than 7.4 million, but that's also just a slight decrease based on some of the reasons that Rachel was kind of talking about. The one thing that I will mention in her current year expenditure numbers, Rachel does have 28 of her 40 employees that are part of a union that the cost of living is already built in. So her numbers have a little bit less than $30,000 built in for cost of living. So as I've mentioned, you know, depending on your number of employees and which union that they're in, we do have some numbers built in there also. Rachel, what else is driving your budget of expenditures this year?
Well, most of my expenses are pretty fixed, like with salaries and rent, and then the IS. Those are the three top expenditures that I have, and those are all fixed. So that's the lion's share of my budget, and I've tried just to keep maintaining where we were at with some of the other expenses and adjusted here and there, taking away from one and maybe adding a little to another, but trying to keep everything basically where they were this year.
Okay, so Rachel, you've got 40 full-time employees. Those 40 are all filled at this point in time, correct?
Yes, there is a retirement that'll be effective next month. Her last working day was yesterday, but she's got vacation time that'll take her into June. Will she have a big enough payout that could cause you problems for this current year budget, or have you taken that piece into effect also? Well, that would be her vacation. All that should probably come out for this year, and I'm hoping that we've got that covered. Okay. Okay. Rachel, we had exchanged emails a little bit earlier this week, and one of the things that I removed was some airfare and stuff like that due to travel, and I can't remember, Rachel, if you usually have training outside the state of Nebraska, and did we remove this because of COVID, or was this just there was no planned travel for this next year? There was the potential with the NACO visa project that we have. There was the potential of there'd be a presentation at the NACO meeting. So that was just kind of left open for next year, and that's why it was in there, and then that wasn't going to happen, so we just removed it. Okay. Rachel, you got a computer request in for a little less than $10,000. Just kind of explain to us what you're doing with that $10,000. Okay, we have all the computers that we have. We're trying to keep them on a maintenance schedule so that we rotate through and are always keeping our maintenance on our computers up to date. And this is just working with that program that we started of just replacing them as they go out of warranty.
Okay. Okay. I know you're part of the facility study that will be coming out in June at some point in time. Other than that facility study, is there any other future upgrades that you've got in your mind over the next couple years at all?
Well, with the assessor and register of deeds offices getting totally remodeled, we're just doing a wait and see to look how we look compared to them when people walk in, and that's a possibility. I don't know, and if it is, I would want to do. I don't want to be extravagant. I just don't want. I just want to see what they have and see how we fare in appearance.
Okay. Rachel, last thing for me, I just kind of want to remind each of the departments that, we will be having a new HR payroll system that will be coming into play within the next 6 months. And from here through those next 6 months, we will be bringing out different modules at different times, which will at times affect your employees where there's going to be some training that is needed. So I just want to make sure that everybody kind of understands that when a module will come out, and it'll get close to being on a monthly basis where we will bring a module out and do training also. So I just want to make sure that you've got it in the back of your mind, understanding that employees are going to need to be trained over these next 6 months, and it will happen almost on a monthly basis.
Okay. All right, that sounds good. We're prepared. There's already been a few, I don't know if they're trainings, but meetings that a couple of my staff have gone to.
Okay, well, yeah, so like I said, most of the time when we move, it's probably going to, that training is going to affect every employee you got.
Mm-hmm.
So I just want to make sure that we're on the same page, so that when you start seeing trainings, first one will start in June, then it will kind of be probably a monthly basis from there.
Okay, that sounds good.
Okay.
Yes, that's fine.
County Board, any other questions for Rachel?
I really don't have anything. Anybody else?
I'm okay.
I
Seems
had
very
one
reasonable.
follow-up, Rachel. You said something about a change in the state statutes, perhaps, that was allowing you to raise a fee on something.
Not that we're raising a fee, it's just that the state is paying us more of a fee for the sales tax.
Oh,
They had a
collecting.
limit, and now it's a percent.
Oh, okay.
It was if I remember right, that was a NACO legislative initiative.
Yes, it was.
And it sounds like that kind of helped offset the loss of interest income.
Some, yes. And probably most of it for now, but I don't know going into the future how much it'll be able to offset.
Right.
Hey, Rachel, when did we start getting the percentage on the motor vehicle?
I believe that was January 1.
Okay. All right,
Hey,
Rachel.
very
I
good.
appreciate you stopping by to talk with us today.
Thank you.
Okay, so since I can't really see Karen and Jenny, are you with us?
Yes, we definitely are.
Okay. I'm going to try to move over here to the extension numbers here. And so, Karen, why don't I let you also introduce who else is with you to the county board before we start chatting, and then I'll forget all about it.
That sounds good, Dennis. Thank you. Well, first of all, hello, everyone. Fun to see you virtually, I guess. Extension is, I believe, a master now of Zoom calls. We are on them daily, and we're all getting a little bit more familiar, I guess, with different ways of doing things. But I did want to say, as I always do every year, that I want to thank you, the commissioners, for your acknowledgement of the importance of extension in our community. Education is certainly something that helps the community function to its best, and so thank you for your support over the years. And then I wanted to introduce who's with us as well today. So you all know Jenny DeBoer. She's on board here, of course, and will likely assist with answering a few of the questions. And then we have Chris Scow, who is our Extension Board President. And so we thank Chris for taking some time to listen in today and offer anything that he might have to offer as well. So with that, I guess I also wanted to thank the commissioners for our successful upgrade and replacement of those 2 air conditioning units that are on our roof. That was quite the project, and I appreciate you just supporting that, and both financially as well as just understanding the need for it. Our building's about 35 years old now, and so little by little here, each year we've kind of taken on some of these major projects, but we should be good to go. I don't know. Obviously, we're not really in the office, and it hasn't necessarily been hot, so we'll kind of see how things go here this summer. But yeah, we're very pleased to kind of have the boiler and the air conditioning sides of things done now, hopefully for some time. And then that completion of the public restrooms that are now completely ADA compliant. That was huge. That was really weighing on me for some time. And so we were able to do that out of our budget, and very happy that that's in place. So that was about what I wanted to introduce there, Dennis.
Okay. So Karen and Jenny, for additional appropriations at mid-year, you thought you would be all right making it through the rest of this fiscal year. Are you still on that same track?
Yes, we should be okay.
Okay. So COVID-19 caused a lot of issues to your current year's budget?
Probably not to the budget. It's probably more personnel
Right.
that is affected by this, which is, I would say, a great great deal. But our budget should be okay.
Okay. So let's then just I'm going to kind of float over your numbers, and then we'll kind of talk about what's driving some of it. So when you take a look at the extension budget on the expenditure side, you will see that their budget is just a little over $1 million. And percentage increase, it's a little less than 1%, 0.80% increase from last year. Now, there is a revenue number down here. Now, I don't know that it's going to quite pick it up, but you will see the revenue budget is about $5,500, which is right about the same that extension budgets each year for that. One of the items in the current year budget, like I talked about with Rachel's group, 5 of the 7 employees are part of a union, so we've already got their cost of living built into there. So this does include, the majority of the employees for cost of living. So from there, Karen and Jenny, let's talk about what's driving your budget.
Okay, well, we're definitely personnel driven. About 85% or so is personnel. And one thing I will mention is each year this kind of comes up, I think, but we have 6 employees who are university hired but county paid. And those are in the other category under the client services. And so that the increase that we kind of are seeing here has a little bit to do with the increase that they will all receive, hopefully, in July from the university side. And so that's the difference. So we technically have more than the 7, but that's in 2 separate categories. Jenny, do you have anything else to offer related to personnel?
I was just going to say total personnel costs increased by $11,413. That's both county and university staff. So you'll see that in the personal services as well as the other category. But otherwise, we were able to decrease our budget by $3,373. So it's really due to personnel costs that our budget has increased.
So Jenny, remind me on the IS side, did the change in budget model benefit you guys?
Yes, it actually did. We had a decrease in the IS, expenses.
I was upside down this morning.
Okay. Okay.
I was upside down on my screen this morning.
You were up to, I didn't, oh, I wasn't part of that meeting, so I don't
And
know.
so, let's talk about your,
so my computer.
your FTEs.
Clicked on the laptop.
Do you have one retirement that's happening next budget year?
Yes. Yes, that is the plan. One retirement for this next fiscal year.
I did ingeniously because I couldn't.
Okay, so you've got really 7 full-time county employees, and then you've got. Talk to me about what your temp number means to me.
Are you guys done with this today?
So we have 3 summer interns that fall under that temporary category. So that's for our 3 summer interns that we hire for 4-H related activities.
Okay. Talk to me. You got a computer request of just a little less than $10,000, also about $9,700, $9,800. Talk to me about what's all involved with that request.
Okay. I heard Rachel talking, and honestly, we're basically under that same type of plan. We use a rotating basis, and of course we have Jim Weiss, who's our tech person on staff, and he has his plan set up that there's this rotating basis similar to what Rachel was talking about. When computers have lived their life, so to speak, then we replace. We have about 30 staff roughly. It goes up and down a little bit, and so as those are kind of changed out with new, then they're repurposed, and we continue to use those computers for other staff as well. So it's kind of just a rotating basis consistently, but again, making sure that we have up to date and ability to do what we need to do. And especially now, I guess, since we have so many remote working from our office.
Okay.
So I think that's about all I have, I guess, on that. I don't know.
Okay. Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
So Karen, talk to us now about, we've been talking about this building thing for I don't know how many years now. Just kind of quick refresh our memory on your thoughts out there.
Okay. I'm starting to feel a little bad about this constant talk about maybe an addition or something. Again, our overall goal is to make sure that we have a building that's conducive for the best environment for the staff. And at different times throughout these last few years, we've just been completely kind kind of crammed in there. And so that's why it started at one point in time with, wanting to make sure that we were able to accept additional staff that might be placed with us via grants as well as the university funding. And so at one point in time, it looked like we were just really, under ability to accept more staff. And so that's what kind of started that. And then there were some downturns in the economy, and then they decided not to do this extra hiring that was planned. It's kind of been consistent that, and several of you who have been out and kind of toured our facility, we're pretty packed in there. But, currently, like right now, we, have enough room for the current staff. What happens in the summer typically, and again, this summer is going to be a little bit different, but what happens in the summer is we have to start doubling up. Some of the educators have to put in somebody with them. We have a couple of interns that have to share a cubicle, which is not ideal because those are a little bit small in the first place. So we teeter on, wow, we really need help here. And then like right now, we're obviously not probably having an increase in staffing. So I guess I would still like to be in that plan and see if we couldn't maybe add those few additional offices so that we are set. But I understand completely that, as we move through difficult situations, that might change what other people's needs are as well, that could be more critical.
So Karen, and I don't know if you know this answer or not with where we're at right now. Is there any thoughts on, I mean, does your thought process change on whether everybody comes into the building every day or not?
Yeah, we're taking this kind of slow and carefully. We're always listening to the county and what maybe our mayor is talking about for Lancaster County and Lincoln specifically. And then I move over to the university side, and they really have been a driver in a lot of what we do because they started out just basically putting us in different levels, and since we fall under them as well, we're now in a level 4, which is the top level for the university standard there. And that means that staff is supposed to for sure work remotely. And so all of campus staff had to not come into the office, and we're technically not allowed to go into the office. We've had a couple of exceptions. We're still operating the embryology program from our office, and so a couple of staff have been able to go in to take care of that. We also have Chris, our maintenance and janitorial staff, county staff person, that is remaining in the office. So it's really just one. Jenny also goes in once a week to retrieve bills, mail, take care of a lot of that type of stuff. She just picks it up. And it's been sitting on the counter, basically, or sitting on a table for some time. So she's in and out a little bit, but at this point, we remain in that level 4. So we have not set any kind of a date yet. We're wanting to move to level 3 at some point, and that means that we're still asked to work remotely, but we can go into the office for different things. So I don't know if that makes any sense, but at this point, we are all working remotely and actually doing pretty well with it. Lots of programming is still going on. We've got horticulture is getting calls galore. At one point in April, there were close to 500 questions that had come our way with horticulture just for April alone. So we do have master gardeners on board as well, all remotely. And so we've been able to figure out some ways. Also, we had a pretty big 4-H project of hats and masks for hospitals. And I think it was up to 900 masks, I believe. I hope I have this right now, but that were made for hospitals, as well as about 800 hats, surgical hats that were made and primarily by 4-Hers. So we're trying to kind of keep that rolling as well. I don't know, I probably veered off a little bit there, Dennis, but at this point, we don't necessarily have a date. We are taking advantage of your offers there for items that we will need. Will probably be on the conservative side of making everybody wear a mask when they're in our office, and making sure that we kind of slowly but surely introduce public into that maybe lobby area, and then possibly having, you know, meetings start in our conference rooms. But we've done pretty much shutting down of the conference rooms here for at least, I'd say, through June, kind of following some university guidelines for people gathering too.
Okay. Okay. Karen and Jenny, last thing from me is just dealing with the payroll system, and I'd like to, you know, I'd like to say the same thing that I've been trying to tell everybody, but you guys are so different out there that, you know, somehow your 7 plus your interns will have to be dealing with some of that training, you know, once the system gets going. I don't know, Jenny, how much you'll be involved with that, but we'll somehow have to get your county employees and run them through the training just like we do everybody else.
Yeah, I'm sure I'll be heavily involved. I've been asked to do some things already as far as tracking things, and you know, but yeah, our staff can all operate remotely too. I don't know if the trainings will be via Zoom or what that looks like in the future, but yeah, they kind of know it's coming, so they've all been. I've told all of them to kind of brace for the next, you know, kind of year, I guess, for different things that might be coming up.
Okay.
Because of the nature
Commissioner
of what,
Commissioner Amundsen had a comment, I think.
okay.
Yeah, actually, I need to go, excuse me, I need to go back just a little bit. This was in terms of the building onto the facility, the additional building, and I just wanted to revisit that a little bit. You know, we've been talking about working remotely and everything, and I've often thought that maybe is this introducing us to some paradigm shifts? Are there different ways to working? Do you think, can we look forward and really ask if that is needed?
Yes,
I'm just wondering.
Good question, Roma. And you know, it's funny because we have started thinking about that type of thing as well. University is too. It's interesting. In hearing from staff. We have a weekly staff, I call it our check-in, in which all staff get on Zoom, and everyone has a chance to say some things that, you know, they want to say. We are definitely kind of watching the mental side of this working remotely, and you know, we kind of see the gamut. We see some struggling, we see a few maybe that are just doing pretty well. It continues to come up though that people are saying, you know, we can't wait to get back into the office. I know Jenny and I have said it numerous times because of the fact that there's so many things. The email system can kind of put you over the edge, you know, with the number of programming things going on. It changes all the time, and now we're moving into the summer, which of course has all these different types of programs going on than the school year. And we're kind of concerned that we don't have that face-to-face contact to work things out. And so Roma, you know, honestly, I don't know. There is you know, a possibility that we could look into this. There might be one program area that would be more suitable for working remotely than others. The university isn't very keen on it. I will just say that they kind of, you know, it's a little bit more hard to manage to have people working remotely. And so at this point, we don't have a plan to do that, or to continue, I should say, because I continue to watch people and hear people. I get emails from staff indicating, you know, that when can we go back? We need to, you know, have these face-to-face planning sessions and things like that with their items that are still in the office, I think is probably the biggest thing.
Okay, I understand that. And I guess I'm just wondering, this is one of the challenges that I was looking at is, are there different ways of working? Do you have to have 100% of the staff in? Can you have just, I mean, those are just some of the things that I think that we need to look at coming into this new environment.
Yes, I agree. And I think we just will continue to do that.
Okay.
So I appreciate you bringing that up.
Okay. Did we have anything else for Karen?
All right, Karen and Jenny, thanks for hopping on. I appreciate it, and we'll keep you updated on the HR payroll system.
That sounds
Okay, thank
good.
you.
Thank you all.
Have a good day.
You
You
too. Stay safe.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, Shelley and Melissa, are you guys on now?
We are, sir.
Okay. So let's jump into the Youth Services Center's budget for this current year.
Okay.
Again, at mid-year, it looked like everything was going all right this year. How are we sitting now?
Oh, I am so very happy to give you guys good news for the rest of this. We, with revenue, we anticipate to meet the revenue projections, Dennis.
Okay.
And as you all recall or may recall, Dennis urged us to increase and to push it to increase our revenues and our services. And I'm happy to report that we were able to meet that.
Good.
Yes. And expenditures, we right now are looking at about 190 underspent. Most of that is due to our staffing costs and decrease in education costs, but that comes into the revenue. So we have decrease in education, then we have decrease in revenue. Medical costs, because HHS came on board, we're working on a contract and you should be getting it soon where our medical costs are going down, but we're actually getting more service. And obviously the rent for HHS. And I'm happy to report the collaboration with HHS has had no problems. Okay. So we met our revenues and we're giving you back money. But I'm asking, with this payroll system, with the leave process, we clearly need to look at some programming for the manner in which that may be used for our facility. And if there needs to be programming, and Dennis, if our current Jantech system can be configured to upload to Oracle, I would like to be able to use some of our existing budget to pay for that. I don't know how you budgeted for the new Oracle system, but I'm saying that we have some extra money. Okay. And obviously that's only if it's reasonable.
Right, right. Yeah, and I think Shelley, we can talk about that as we go through the next month and a half.
Okay.
So, Shelley, talk to us about what COVID-19 is doing to your current year budget.
Actually, most everything that we have had to get, I worked with Sarah and we're seeking reimbursement through the Crime Commission, from our staffing to our computers. I did talk to her and she'll be talking with you later at some time about some of the equipment, the masks and that kind of equipment and the complications with the Crime Commission there. But that's only probably about $4,000 at all. It's really how it's impacted us is we've had lower number of youth, thereby needing fewer staff coverage when people are gone. And just to make sure you know, our overtime and coverage that we needed for our people who were out on emergency leave, we did seek reimbursement through the Crime Commission on that. So it really, so far, everybody's been safe. That's about it, Dennis.
Okay. Okay.
You know, we got a couple of computers that IS had for working at home at the very beginning, but we put those costs into Sarah's money, the Crime Commission.
Okay.
And then we also requested 3 more, Melissa, or 4 more computers. We didn't ask for any computer dollars in this year's budget. We asked for them through the Crime Commission so that we can be more effective in how we do video courts and video visitation. Roma, if you remember, we talked about the number of simultaneous courts going on.
Yes.
So we sought reimbursement of, we sought laptops through Sarah's Crime Commission request.
Good.
Okay, so Shelley, let's move to the current year budget. So this year, I'm just kind of toggling over the numbers, and it will show that the expenditure request is just at a little less than 5.2 million, which is down about 1.69%. When we look at the revenue side is at 2.5 million, which is an increase of 2.74%. Now, before I have you guys start addressing some of your budget stuff, I'll just remind the board with the Youth Services Center, their JDOs, their contract is set up, so that is their cost of living is built in. But we also worked with Melissa to kind of build in estimated numbers for all employees since we do come up with a billing number so that we have it built in there. So between the expenditures and revenues, it looks like the net decrease will be just a little over $154,000. So Shelley and Melissa, talk to us about what's kind of driving your stuff.
Okay, this year the revenue, it's based upon 16 billable youth a day and operating at 3 houses. If you recall, our current rate is $276 for probation and contract counties, $375 for OJS. And we base that on July 1, Dennis, operating where we have 16 billable youth a day. So we're gonna have to watch that real closely. Okay.
Okay.
Our expenditures is based upon 23 youth a day because we have those county court kids. But both of those collectively are based upon operating 3 housing units. Are you with me?
Yep.
Are we together? Okay. I'm going to cover education contract lastly. Dennis, you and I spoke about that.
Right.
So we're projecting an increase of 65,000 in our revenue overall. And expenses, you know about the decrease. There was no change in our staffing. Rent is a driving reduction of about 150,000. But then we had the 2% COLA. With we used to have our IS costs separated into IS, VoIP, and data processing. Overall, the new configuration is an increase of $20,000. So our IS line item, Dennis, went up by 42,000. VoIP went down 12,000, and data processing went down 10,000.
Okay.
We've had several phone conversations with the IS people, and we can't compare. This is not apples to apples, so you can't do a straight comparison. But we believe it's a combination of the reallocation of cost that was developed, the addition of Office 365, and maybe some CGIS project dollars, but we still weren't able to nail down specifically. Because as you recall, most of our employees don't use 365.
Right.
It is only our administrative staff.
And And Shelley, at some point, you guys will be able to tell IS at what levels you need 365 at, because I believe there's like 3 different levels that you can get.
Right. And I don't know, I am not suggesting in any way that every staff have a computer, because our staff are working staff. They don't sit in an office. I don't mean that in a way, but some people would never touch a computer a day. So we'll probably just have one computer, Dennis, for the payroll.
Yeah.
Here,
Yeah, that makes sense.
to keep those costs down.
Yep.
Other client services, we had a decrease of 11,000 in food. You're going to see our medical goes down 11,000, but I want to make sure you're clear. We have increased 2 days of staffing because of how we're working with HHS, OJS on our shared contract. I'm also pleased to announce that we did not ask any money for grants. So I don't know if you guys have questions over those before I go into education.
I don't have anything. Anybody else?
Nope.
Okay. Dennis and Jennifer and Carrie and Dave have all been included in some conversations. Now, as you remember, this was set up a long time ago. LPS gives us how much it costs to operate the school. There's not a big component of me saying it can't be that. Like for other contracts, I drive the service. But then, so that goes into our budget. And then each semester, they give Melissa the bill. Melissa seeks the reimbursement from HHS, and then you see that reimbursement in revenue. Now, HHS does not reimburse for our kids in adult court. So what you see is the expenditures are not like a set per diem. They go up and down so they can balance based upon the number of kids served that can be reimbursed. For 2 years, HHS has sent out notice that they were going to change the per diem. They then pulled back. I am working with Jennifer to make sure it's real clear on if the county needs to pay and then seek reimbursement. But if it doesn't say that, one of the questions I talked with Dennis about is, do we want to contractually ask LPS to just do the direct bill to HHS and get that reimbursement? That would reduce my budget by about $800,000, and they would take care of the billing back and forth. Also, it takes out the risk for us. I talked to Deb a little bit about it. Deb, I don't know if you have, or Dennis.
Yeah, I mean, to me, if they're willing to do it, I mean, we're just kind of a pass through right now. You know, so if they're willing to do it, I see absolutely no problems with moving that direction.
Well, we're
I
also
really
at
think
risk,
that-
Dennis, if they don't reimburse, if HHS doesn't reimburse us. Right.
I mean, I think that this is a good way to go.
Yeah, it seems to me like, and I mean, there's no value in being, the middleman on this one, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
really.
let's get out of the middle by all means.
Not that I'm aware of, unless there's something legally that's required. I think it's going to take, not all of our kids are from Lancaster County. So for kids that are not reimbursed, there might be some billing to other counties for their educational costs, which we could figure out in contracts very easily and just do an amendment to our contracts with our contract counties.
Okay.
Do you want us to pursue looking at that?
Yep, I would say so.
And Shelley, you think that they're going this way because of just the whole complete restructuring of, Kearney and Geneva and, the HHS facility, here locally? Is that kind of the reason behind it, you think?
You mean why HHS has previously said to set a lower per diem? Is that your question?
Well, I guess the change in the billing for the educational component.
Well, I think so HHS, it's the State Department of Education that we seek our reimbursement from.
Right.
There's a significant range of educational costs from facility to facility.
Okay.
I mean, significant. And you need to understand, or I don't want to say it that way. So depending upon our kids, the cost per kid goes up for educational services significantly, right? Like, so if we have, because with education, they don't like not have an on-call staff in, or they don't not have a teacher come in. So they staff as if we're going to be fully full. But
Right.
if we're down a whole unit, they don't cut those costs down. Like our costs for going, where them being off site, the only thing we saved on was supplies. We didn't save on any educational teacher costs.
Okay.
Right.
And so I don't know, but if I was in the mind of HHS, I presume they're looking at this variance and wanting to get some control over it.
Right. Okay. That's kind of what I was thinking. So.
Okay, well, I'll look at that. I'll work with Dennis and Brittany, or not Brittany, Jennifer and Dave and Carrie and the whole group and keep you guys posted. How's that?
Thanks.
Okay.
Sounds good.
Hey, Shelley, any future upgrades that you guys see that's warranted out there?
Well, no, because you remember we saved the money for our security system, so we just took care of that. I've told Melissa my fiscal approach is I think our computers are good. If we have some extra money for something like that, then we'll approach you. Not that we're aware of. I mean, no, I think I'm really pleased with this year's budget. I do think the best thing we looked at was that contract with HHS, though, for the using of space. So maybe if they approach us about the staff secure area or something like that, and I'm talking from a fiscal, I'm not talking from a policy.
I get it.
Okay. I mean, remember, we still have that staff secure area that's just sitting there and serving as storage.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Just because I asked that question doesn't mean I want you to come up with something, Shelley. So
well,
I'm
always
having a no answer is fine.
I pay property taxes too, Dennis.
Yeah.
Okay. Shelley, last thing for me is just my payroll, my HR payroll plug, and we've been talking about that, and I know you've been doing some meetings and stuff like that, so you kind of understand where we're at, where we're trying to move to. So
yeah, I mean, like you and I've talked, I totally get the goal. It's how to make it work. So it works.
now we just got to get to that goal.
And we will. And then I think the other thing, I don't know if Brad brought this up or something, but eventually we are going to have to tackle these CGIS issues.
Yes, true. No doubt about it. Okay, so county board, if you've got questions for her at all, otherwise I'm good.
I'm sad.
Really appreciate your hard work, Shelley.
Thank you. But I need to tell you, I really want to put the plug in for all the administrative staff in developing this budget, but also I've got some great supervisors and management staff that don't waste money. And I really appreciate them understanding that we're just part of a whole.
Great.
Very good.
Thank you.
That's exactly right.
Good news in that budget.
Thank you. All right. Have a great day. And you guys stay safe, please.
Thank you.
Have a great weekend.
We will.
Next up is,
Hey, Sean, just to remind the county board, next week we're doing Tuesday and Thursday for budget hearings. Tuesday will be the county engineer, and then on Thursday we'll do 3 other departments. Something to look forward to.
Yeah.
It'll be Pam's day in the sun.
Deb, you'll be fine. You'll be fine.
I know.
Hey,
Next up-
Dennis, the bad news is for you, it's no closer to quitting time than when you started.
Hold on a sec. Yeah, I mean, it's time for me to go. I mean, I appreciate your time, but I gotta go.
Carrie, lock the door. Don't let him leave.
Okay, next up is the COVID update and response. I'm going to start off with an update from Director Lopez.
Hi, everybody. Good to see you. Hope you're all well. I'm going to share my screen for a minute, if that's okay. I just wanted to show the commissioners that we have created a COVID risk dial that's on the website for the city of Lincoln, and hopefully you can link it up to the county website. But when you first open this, it didn't do it because I already had it open to show you the dial change goes to where it needs to, where we're at right now. So it's kind of like if you think of a weather forecast report, it gives you the status of where we currently are. And we'll be changing once a week on Friday afternoons. And the guidance behind this is based on where we're at with our case numbers, what our positivity rate is, what our healthcare system capacity is, how our contact tracing is going, and also it just left my head. But those are the main things that we look at when we're deciding where the dial should be. So as you go down, you look at it. We go from green to low risk to severe, which is the highest risk. So you can click on here and see all the dial recommendations for COVID for each one of the areas. That tells you both what you should do outside of home and then at home when we're in a certain situation. So if you go back, when we see this in the orange area, it tells us what we need to do, like stay as much as possible, keep our physical distancing, work from home if possible, do these things. And what we're really focusing on is physical distancing, our face coverings and hand washing. We know those are the most important things in working to prevent the spread of COVID. So there's outside of your home, in your home, and then we have those who are most at risk and vulnerable over age 65, underlying health conditions, and what they should be doing. So I wanted to show you that so you'd have an idea of what we've been doing this week. The dial was introduced Monday. And then the other thing I want to show you is on the dashboard. We have added to the dashboard how many people have recovered from COVID. So now we're at 63. But if you remember on April 29th, I was looking for my 30th, April 30th, we had 193 cases in Lancaster County. Today, on May 14th, we have 688. So the majority of our cases have come within the last month. So that means that in order to talk about recovery, we have to, our nurses, the contact who do the case investigations and maintain the contact, call the individuals back after 28 days to see if they've recovered, if they're symptom free and that. So you can see we're not quite at that point of the 28 days yet. So we know we will be seeing more recoveries. So that's on there. The other thing I wanted to let you know is since last Friday, we have reported 3 additional deaths in Lancaster County. We'll be reporting another death today. So that's a big change when we've gone all this time with 1 death. We've been really lucky in that area. We've been able to really be able to respond. The other thing on the dashboard now is by cases by age group. So you can see the majority are 40%, really our age grouping is that 50 to 59-year age range there is the largest group. Then yesterday we added race and ethnicity. We didn't post that before because we really wanted to make sure that we were protecting individuals, and we are concerned about particular communities being stigmatized. But you can see that almost 60% of the people with that are COVID positive are Asian or Hispanic by looking at this number. So in general, 70% of those COVID positive in our community are of various different races and ethnicities. So we're working hard on that. And that kind of leads me into tomorrow we have a testing that's being done by Bryan. We've partnered with Bryan Health and the cultural centers, and we'll be doing a testing at Lincoln High in the South parking lot. And I think, I haven't checked now for a couple hours, but we had about 70 people already registered for that testing. So we're pretty excited about that, and we'll see how that goes forward. In addition, to kind of help people be able to quarantine and isolate safely at home, you know, you still have to have groceries, you still have to have basic necessities. So we've developed some care packages for families that might need those. And then the cultural centers will work with the families if they have food needs and other things to try and meet that so they can be successful at quarantining and isolating at home. We've also worked with the cultural centers and other nonprofits to provide some face coverings for them and hand sanitizer so they have it available. And we've been having regular calls with long-term care centers to discuss what their needs are. And we've included many of the health directors, and that's been a really great opportunity for us to learn together from each other on what works best in certain areas. We've been really fortunate in Lincoln. We've had a few employees and just most recently some residents be positive, but we've been able to quarantine and isolate those and bring in the ICAP team from the state. So we're hoping, we had Bryan go in and do some testing at one particular site. That's been a great, I can't tell you how great it's been to have that relationship with Bryan and CHI. Many other communities don't have that kind of system where we can call and they'll go in to places that actually need testing done and do the testing. The other thing, you'll notice we issued another directive health measure. And one of the main things that's a little bit different is the date. It goes to the 30th, and it's still following the recommendations by the governor, and we provided a lot of input on those recommendations. But our main difference is just providing masks in restaurants, that restaurant people need to have a mask on when they go in, and also the servers do. And then sanitizing, we recommend sanitizing more often. But we developed those recommendations with the Restaurant Association, with restaurant owners here in Lincoln. We did the same with our body arts and our cosmetology and barber groups, so that we really wanted to have, and massage therapy. So we really had their input about what worked best, and from the public health perspective, what would keep them safe and the people that they're serving safe. I see I had a question from Ann about testing, and I'll follow up with Brad. I'm not sure what happened there, but Tim and I will follow up with him. There must have been some, we have it set up at Bryan so that the corrections officers and jailers should be able to have rapid testing. So we'll follow that up.
It's Scott that's also having issues too.
Okay.
From the crisis center.
Scott from the crisis center?
Yep.
Scott Atherton.
Okay. We'll talk with him.
Okay, thank you.
It could be, we haven't had any problem with police and fire, so I'm thinking we have some breakdown in how the request is being done. So Tim and I can follow up with him and see.
Thank you.
Sure. So today, I told you we have 688 cases. We'll have more this afternoon. So we're only reporting out once a day now. So this will be updated by 3 or 3:30 every day, just so you know.
Okay. Yes,
Question.
Mr. Short.
Pat, the risk dial, did you flip it?
Yeah.
When it was first introduced, wasn't the red on the other side?
Yes.
Okay.
You know, we had, I think there were over 10,000 touches to that in the first 8 hours.
Yeah.
And people said, you need to flip this. So since we had a fair number of people say that, we flipped it.
Okay. No, I think it's amazing that your staff put that together in, a little over a week. I think there is so much information on the dashboard. I think it at times is overwhelming. To me, the risk dial is just that one shot, easy to read, easy to visualize.
Yeah. I agree. They're pretty amazing. So when you actually click on it, the dial moves to where you are.
Yeah.
So if you get in and go on there, you'll see that.
We have any other questions for Director Lopez? Anything else?
Yeah. Pat, we've been hearing a lot about with the restaurants opening up now. There's been some mention of bars wanting to follow suit with the same sort of distancing guidelines. It appears that we're not ready to we haven't made that decision yet. Do you see any movement on that coming, or is that just going to have to be wait and see how these goes?
I think it really will depend on how the restaurant opening that we're doing now goes and what's happening in our community before we move forward. And, we've been asked about why the bars aren't opening. That was something we also talked about. But it is really related to the fact that when you go into a bar and if there's not food there, you're really going in to socialize and sit, and you're going to be in there a more extended period of time. And so your exposure in those in there, whereas when you're going into a restaurant, you usually go in, eat your meal, maybe have a drink with your meal or whatever, and you socialize some, but then you leave. Whereas a bar, people can be in there for a longer length of time.
Yeah, that was kind of the assumption I made when I saw that distinction. So
yeah,
thank you.
Great question. Thank you.
Any other questions for Director Lopez? Okay.
Thanks for all you do.
I'm gonna have us change up. Pat, you wanted to be part of the discussion on hiring nurses for health screenings, right?
Yeah.
I'm gonna have us change up the order then that we address these. I'm gonna do the judge's request first, and then we'll do the hiring nurses, and then we'll come back to mandatory masks for staff. So if that works for everybody, next up we will do judge's request for additional resources, including a nurse for public health screenings and additional cleaning. Judge Colburn, you want to kick us off, or?
Sure. We put together a committee for reopening the courts in a couple of different phases. One would be to open the courts for trials to the judge, where we would just have the parties and counsel and one witness at a time in the courtroom. And then also the second part of that is resuming jury trials, both in criminal and civil cases. One of our concerns, especially with juries, is maintaining the social distancing with that many people coming to court. And one of the things that we talked about is how can we screen those people before they come into our courtrooms. And one of the discussions was doing that at the front entrance, the security entrance of the building. And you know, the sheriffs aren't set up to do the screening, to ask the questions and take the temperature of the individual. I think maybe Captain Woody is on this meeting also, and I know they have ordered a machine that's able to take people's temperatures, but it's going to be a while before that gets here. It's my understanding that I believe the city is taking the temperature and asking screening questions of all of their employees on a daily basis. So in our discussions with our committee, we asked if it was possible to get a nurse to screen everyone coming into the building every day. And Captain Woody can give you a little bit more information on that, but I thought he said on a normal day about 2,000 people come into the building. And with bench trials, these people are going to be in our courtrooms all day long. I just heard you talking about people going to the bars and sitting there for a while because they're there to socialize. Well, with people coming to our courts for day-long trials, they're there all day long. And with jurors, that's a lot of people for a long period of time. And so to maintain the safety and health of everyone involved, we thought it might be a good idea to see if there's a possibility of getting a nurse or someone equally qualified to take the temperature of people entering the Justice Building and asking the screening questions so that we don't get anyone in there in the building. I know there are people that are asymptomatic or have very slight symptoms that may make it into the building and be infectious, but and Ames is part of that committee. Any further comments? And
No, I don't think so. I did have a conversation with Jen Holloway earlier this week, and she checked with Jim David Saber, and there's the potential that if we did hire nurses to do the temperature screenings, that it's something that's maybe reimbursable.
that would be great.
When are we, let's talk dates here for a second. When are we thinking about jury trials starting? I've heard different rumors, but nothing concrete.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that this committee is trying to figure out is when can we do that? And one of the things is making sure we have all the PPE, the mask. For jury cases, the lawyers indicate they want to be able to see the faces of the jurors when they're asking them questions. So we ordered a bunch of the plastic shields that the jurors can wear during jury questioning and perhaps even during the trial. I know we have ordered masks from the court administrator's office, as well as hand sanitizer.
We received those today, Judge.
Okay, great. Thanks, Jared. Okay, so we have the mask and we're getting the hand sanitizer. We've got the face. So not an easy question to answer. I see that an order went out today from the federal court indicating that jury trials will not begin in federal court until July. We were looking at our June jury term as a possibility, but we don't know if we're going to be ready. We don't. We're kind of waiting, one, to see what the trends are here in Lancaster County. Are the numbers going to continue to go up? Are they going to level out? Are they going to go down? We're about 3 weeks away from the jury term, the June 8th jury term, a little more than 3 weeks. Notices have gone out to potential jurors. They've been summoned with a cautionary letter saying, we're still waiting to figure out what is going to happen. And once a decision is made, we will do everything we can to assure jurors that we're going to look after their safety and put measures in place for masks, social distancing, and hand sanitizer, which is what in our committee, what we were advised that those are the three most important things to try to avoid people becoming infected from someone else. So I'm sorry I don't have a better answer than that. We're trying to figure out when we can get started.
Sure. Well, I mean, I'm not an epidemiologist, but I think I've got a pretty good grasp on the power of exponential growth, and I think we should all expect the numbers to continue to rise for at least a few more weeks. At least that's everything. Everything I've seen indicates that we're not done yet.
If I could.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Judge Colburn, you said that jury summons had gone out, and will there be an option for someone to not accept the summons because they're in a high risk factor or feel unsafe, or there have been discussions about that?
We have discussed it, and you know, those are legal decisions that have to be made on a case-by-case basis. However, one of the things that we have done in the past with people for various issues, including health issues, is rather than excuse them, we defer them to a jury term, maybe 4 months from now, 6 months from now. So that's a possibility that someone would be deferred over health concerns. But I want to be careful there because those could be legal issues raised by some of the parties. So I'm careful not an advisory opinion of how we're going to rule on all those things.
Yeah, it was just a general question. I wasn't asking for specifics. Thank you.
And I just got these numbers. We sent out summons to 1,300 people and only 300 did not respond.
Yeah.
So
does someone from the sheriff's office want to talk about potential delivery date or installation date for the floor machine?
Yeah, sure. We have sent it out. I think we were using a grant money to purchase the FLIR scanner. We're still looking at 6 to 8 weeks. We're hopeful on the 6-week end of that, but it's going to be a little bit. As our security checkpoint goes, we do have a procedure in place where we're able to mostly maintain a 6-foot distance with the people that we are screening. We have regular hand washing, more frequent sanitization of the area, and we're all wearing face coverings. Without being able to remotely take people's temperatures, it would require us obviously to get within that 6-foot distance on potentially 2,000 people a day, which is not something that we have medical grade PPE for. We don't have the training, et cetera. But the other issue that comes up with that is so we do start asking health questions, and we do have somebody that responds in the affirmative that they do have these sorts of symptoms. Now what? Somebody's going to have to give them medical referral and advice, and that's just not something we're equipped to do.
No, this is Pat. I'm going to just jump in here.
Please.
And I know that there's another meeting at 3 o'clock today to talk about this and with the folks at health and the court system. I would tell you that when I really would be very cautious in advising you that you ask the public screening questions. That's really not something that we would advise. We have some really great signs made up that people can, you can post visibly that tell people if you have these symptoms, don't come in. If you get the thermometer, the scanner coming in, I think you'll be fine if somebody, if it's clearly posted, if you have a temp over 104, 100.4, you're not coming in. So I think that there's a way to do this without adding a lot of extra burden. I'm very concerned if we start asking people about their symptoms, that we're kind of getting over into an area where that could create more issues than help with anything. And so I think, you know, we've been using this process. Our building has not been shut down. We have been providing service to the public. We can't just shut down. And, you know, using the thermometer, of course, we're medical people over here, but using the temperature process has worked well for us, and using the signage has worked really well. So just to kind of reassure you, I think we've had a couple months experience with this now, with people coming into the building from all areas of the community, all socioeconomic status, all kinds of, even language barriers, those kinds of things. And we've been able to be successful. We haven't, knock on wood, I'm just going to say that we have had no staff exposed to anything. And part of that too will be, of course, we want to be wearing face coverings, and we're working on a face covering recommendation for the city and the county to share. I think it's important that we model what we're asking the community to do. Of course, we don't ask our staff screening questions. They know what the things are, but we all have our temperature checked every day. And I know there's been a lot of discussion about that, but this is what our employers are doing out in the community. So if we're going to ask the meatpacking plant, and we're going to ask Kawasaki, and we're going to recommend that to everyone else, why in a community where we have 2,000 employees or more with the city and the county, would we not be doing the same thing? So that's, I would recommend, before going forward, thinking about hiring a nurse and number. And the other thing with that, I just want to remind you that you have 16 public health nurses here that are part of the city and the county, and we would be more than willing to assist and figure some of that out, because I know budgets are really tight. And with the contact tracing, I think we can make some recommendations. I like the idea. Jerry, I heard you when you were first talking about the temperature. That was really, I think that would be a good way. That's what some of our bigger companies are doing too, to monitor employees. So we can check around too and find out how they feel, and give you some feedback on that too. So that's all I wanted to share with you. I think it'd be good to go back and have this meeting today and then see where you're at. I know employees are nervous. I don't want somebody coming into the courts and exposing our judges and bailiffs either, or other jurists. So I think with some caution, I also agree with Commissioner Flowerday. I'm really concerned. Right now we have a lot of testing going on in our community, and we're going to be having a lot of results come back. I know we're just at the 15th of May, but I'm concerned that a June timeline is really going to be feasible, to be honest.
Director Lopez, go ahead, Judge.
Well, on May 7th, we had met, and Rick Tass sent us an email to everybody on the committee, and it included the Lincoln Lancaster County Health Department COVID public meeting screening guidelines. And it talked about inquiring from each individual attending the public meeting the following: do you have a fever? Do you have unresolved or new onset shortness of breath, a persistent, sustained, non-productive cough? Do you have sore throat? You also have a Lincoln Lancaster County Health Department COVID city employee screening directive. And it says, ask each employee daily, do you have a fever? Do you have unresolved shortness of breath? And I'm quickly going through this. Do you have onset of persistent non-productive cough? Do you have 2 or more of the following: prolonged sore throat, sustained chills, loss of taste or smell, headache, muscle pain? So I think that's where we thought that those screening questions should be asked, if they were being asked of people attending public meetings and people that were working in the buildings. So is that?
I'm going to have Rick Tass answer that question, Judge, because he's right here.
Judge, I love it because this is just, we hear in case law about rapidly, dynamically evolving situations, and this is one of them. On the public meetings questionnaire that we're doing right now, we are doing that at all city meetings. However, they have pretty decreased attendance, and we're able to ask those in a private area. And you can see on there that if someone has those symptoms, it is suggested they don't attend. We haven't crossed that legal bridge yet of whether or not we can make someone not attend if they have a temperature or symptoms consistent with COVID-19. And those are at the most 10 participants. And so I think the idea is that we would post the more inclusive list outside of the courthouse for people to understand they shouldn't come if they have these, and then do the temperature taking. But we've also, I mean, the one that we did on the public screening ones, I think we wrote that 2 or 3 weeks ago. And then since then, those symptoms have changed to where we have the employee screening one that we're using. So it is still kind of an evolving situation.
But you are asking these questions of your employees daily.
Yeah, and some departments are just, I mean, pretty much everybody knows the symptoms now, so they know. But some departments were actually, I believe, asking them. Some were just handing a sheet saying, if you have any of these, you shouldn't work. So how we are best going to do that with the public, we're open to and explore that.
I think we have to do that because when you talk about the volume of people you having come into the court system, but just making sure we're safe. And like Rick said, you know, to what we did a couple weeks ago has changed now, even though you've seen the signs and symptoms change in the last few weeks too.
And Judge, one other thing in the last 7 days, you know, we've kind of been just spitballing this so we have better information to come back with at today's 3 o'clock meeting. But when we're asking people at those public meetings, again, it's a smaller crowd and it's a smaller question set. There was one person that had the foresight to think that if we start asking the public these individual questions, are we going to go down rabbit holes with some of them? Because there are differing levels of education. I'm just going to be completely professional when I say this. And, you know, with your employees, they have met a certain threshold. And so I think they're able to comprehend those questions better. Just having worked in criminal defense, I could see some issues, time-consuming issues with asking some of the people that would be coming to court these questions and maybe making it not feasible to inquire individually, where a sign as Director Lopez posted saying, if you have these, don't come in, would be better. And then Jen Holloway, we probably need to work on the legal ability to be able to deny someone entry if they had signs and symptoms consistent. Because like, as an example, if someone loses their sense of taste or smell, it's a pretty high chance that that's as a result of COVID. Where if someone has a headache and muscle aches, that could be a cold, it could be COVID. They could have worked out and stayed up late. So
I think just thinking that through, it'd be really important because then we're getting into another area. And I think the key thing to remember is for all of us, irregardless, and sometimes we're so into this and it's impacted how we're working and thinking about our work processes, a little different than the public coming in to see us or ask for service. But we have to assume that, you know, COVID is everywhere in our community. And I think you even said, Judge, about we have so many asymptomatic people that we're not even aware of. And we see that that has come forward to us as well in the case investigations we're doing. And as we work with close contacts and others, that perhaps they really were the index case and the person with the signs and symptoms actually was exposed to them. So I want to make sure that we keep you all safe and the public as well. And then the face coverings is going to be another issue that I haven't even gotten into. So I don't know in the court system how well that would work. So, but I like the idea, the shield is a good.
Can we tell that unified command? And
I'm not, you know, I'm not an attorney and I'm not a medical professional, so I frankly, I have no idea what the right answer is regarding the screening questions. one thing that does occur to me though is it seems like it would make a lot of sense if we're expecting to get the FLIR scanner in between 6 to 8 weeks from now. I mean, that puts us right there at that first work week of July. That just seems like it would make a lot of sense. I also want to thank Director Lopez for her input. I would much rather try to use the in-house medical staff we already have, I think, to just save before we're hiring nurses or expanding that. The budget's going to be tight. It's going to be really tight this year.
Sean, there have
Yeah.
been several references to a 3 o'clock meeting this afternoon. Can someone for me outline who's participating in the meeting and what the goals are for said meeting?
Anne, you're part of that, aren't you?
Part of that meeting, yep. And Jared can probably tell you a little bit more about who's all involved. He's organized it.
Yeah. So we've got some county court judges that are attending. We have Anne from the county board. We've got someone from the jail transport division. The health department, both Rick and Tim were there last week. And we have somebody with the jury commissioner, and then Karen with building facilities, and somebody from maintenance as far as disinfecting and those types of things.
Well,
and then lawn, I mean, obviously Captain Whitty. So
okay. Well, thank you for that information. We are asking the general public to, follow the directives set forth by the health department, and they have been, an outstanding source of consistent information to our, to the general public and how to stay safe. And I certainly hope that your group will defer to their expertise as well in this situation.
absolutely, that's kind of why we brought him in as the first. So.
I'm really sorry to say this, but I have to leave. I have to, I have an appointment at 1 that I can't change. So can we, Judge, can we continue this discussion, and Jerry and Jared as we go forward, and Ann, and then we can come back better and we'll continue to keep having more knowledge. But I think my biggest concern is that we have our increasing number of tests that are coming back positive in our caseload number. Just wanting you to be as safe as possible and the public, and I know that's what you all want as well. So we're all on the same page. So we'll get our pathway clear.
Can we put this item on next Thursday's agenda and just discuss it again in a week? Would that work for everybody?
Yeah, we'll have more information in a week too.
Okay, so same bat time, same bat channel for this one for next week. Do we want to then move on to Pat? So you're leaving right now, so then it doesn't matter. We can do hiring of nurses for health screenings and potential reimbursement later because you're leaving now. Okay, all right. Then we'll stick with the original lineup and go to mandatory masks for staff. Sorry, actually, Judge Colburn, did you have anything to add on that? I don't want to cut you off if there was more that you wanted to say.
No, we'll plan on regrouping next Thursday. We're going to meet at 3 o'clock, and hopefully, as they said, we'll have much more information. It seems like it changes daily. So
doesn't it just? So
okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Do you need anything more?
I mean, no. It's a change. Like we understand that it's a changing. It's a changing environment for all of us. We get that the dates are fluid. We get that the amounts might be fluid because they're based on the dates. So, yeah, I get it.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Oh, thank you. Be well.
Captain Whitty, were you waving goodbye, or did you have your hand up?
I'm sorry, I was waving goodbye. I'll see Judge Colburn at 3.
Okay, thanks. All right, bye-bye.
And hey, real quick, Jared.
He's gone.
Oh, okay.
No, well, he's off audio.
Nope. He's back, he's gone.
I'm still here. Sorry.
Jared, if you could can you shoot me your number and I will try to call you between our 1 o'clock meeting and our 3 o'clock meeting like we talked about?
Yep, absolutely.
Okay.
Great. So next item up then is mandatory masks for staff.
Okay, so I think we're making good progress. I've been able to get the health department a list of our departments, how many thermometers they need. We'll be working to provide each employee with 2 launderable face coverings, and then we're working to get regular surgical masks or something disposable for our departments who might need them for public coming in who wouldn't have them. So I think we're moving along there.
Great, excellent. And this is maybe part of the next conversation as well, but you know, last time we talked about temperatures and mandatory masks and all of that, there was the question of like just whether or not we would have all the supplies from purchasing. Do we feel confident on that stuff? Are we only facing legal issues, or are we facing logistical and legal issues?
Well, all of the supplies have to come through ICS, but I think that they're going to give us what we need. At least that's what they've indicated to me. We don't have it yet, so I can't say with 100% certainty, but Kathy has indicated to me that she's working to get us what we need.
We think it's just legal barriers in front of us. We believe no longer logistical barriers. We'll see.
Right.
Okay. Right.
I've also made good progress. A lot of departments have sent me back their transition to reopening plans.
Oh,
I asked them to send them back to me by this Friday. So
excellent. Good.
We're working through the plexiglass. Some departments have requested something that's more permanent. So those people are working with Karen and kind of in her queue to get lined up for something more permanent. Others have been suggested that they should get something that's not permanent so they can transition out of it more easily.
Okay.
So Jen and I have been working through some guidance. Jen is working on the policy, changing the communicable disease policy to include the temperatures. One of my questions now that we've talked to Pat, which I think I'll need to follow up with her on, is maybe we don't need to be asking our staff those questions. Jen, did you get that feeling from her when she was just speaking, that maybe she doesn't want us asking staff those questions?
I think it's a little bit different than not asking, but it's just because it's so normal now. Everyone knows those questions. So like when I was talking with Brad about what he does out at the jail, those people already know the questions, so they will just call in at the beginning of the day because they know once they go in and they answer yes to a question, they'll instantly be sent home. So I don't think it's such they're not asking every day. It's just everyone knows the questions. So if they are going to answer yes to a question, then they'll either call in, or if it onset happens while they're at work, then they'll handle it that way.
That makes sense.
So we're just working through the guidance. It's pretty basic so far, wouldn't you say, Jen?
Yep. Yeah, and I'll get back with you on that.
Okay.
Thank you for your work on that. Do we have anything else on mandatory masks for staff or follow-up discussion on temperature? We're kind of talking about both at the same time here, I think.
I don't right now.
I don't have anything else.
I think I'm going to follow up with at least one of our elected officials who was kind of wanting to take temperatures of the public. And the guidance back from the health department was we're not doing that. At least at this time, we're going to do signage instead and encourage people to stay out of buildings if they're not feeling well. But that puts our staff, I think, kind of in a frontline risk if they're having to touch every person of the public coming in.
Yeah.
Unless we can get that cool flare thing everywhere.
Yeah. Then we'll move on to item D, hiring nurses for health screenings and potential reimbursement.
Well, I think we should wait now until after our 3 o'clock meeting, and I need to see more what Pat thinks about that. If it's something that she wants to do for the Hall of Justice or not do for the Hall of Justice, then we probably shouldn't do it for other places unless she thinks it's advisable to do for our staff. I mean, it certainly does take a little bit of burden off of those departments of putting someone in that role of the temperature taker. But I just need to talk to her more about that and get a better sense of what she thinks.
Right. I mean, and how would you handle that with all of our multiple facilities?
Right.
Wow, Deb went through a time warp there.
She did.
Oh, really?
You became a
Sorry.
robot. No, it's good. It's good. Your internet caught up. Okay. Okay, so then we will wait on hiring of nurses for health screenings following this afternoon's discussion, and we'll probably let's probably include that one on next Thursday's discussion as well.
Jen, did you have any additional thoughts on hiring nurses that you wanted to share?
I mean, just as we've already discussed, all the guidance and, on temperature taking, it pretty much is clear that it should be done by a medical professional. So that's why Ann and I, and then Christy and Dave, we've been working on the policy and then the guidance with Ann. So we were kind of thinking that would probably be a good thing to do, is hire nurses to take everyone's temperatures. But so that's just why we've started this discussion, and then it can possibly be reimbursed. So sorry, my daughter has things to say.
No, you're good. You're good. So, well, I think that'll be an ongoing discussion then as well. Anybody have anything else regarding COVID or any of these 4 items? No. Appreciate everybody joining. That's the last thing that we had on the agenda. I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Please call the roll.
Yes.
Roma,
Yes.
Rick,
Yes.
Sean,
Yes,
4-0 motion carries.
we are adjourned.
Take care, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks.
I'll stop it down for you, Sean, and I'll stop the stream as well, too.
Perfect.
Have a good day,
Hey, Dan.
folks.
Dan, are you there? Hey, Carrie.